Republican Senator Tim Scott's running for the GOP nomination. He went on The View to talk to Joy Behar because Joy Behar made some comments he took exception to about blackness. Joy was not there. Oh my God, where's Joy? But Sunny Hostin was there. So they had a conversation, and it was interesting.
You have indicated that you don't believe in systemic racism. What is your definition of systemic racism?
Let me answer the question that you've answered.
Or does it even exist in your mind?
Let me answer the question this way. One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
But it's not, actually. It's
been 114 years.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is we've had an African-American president, African-American vice president. We've had 2 African-Americans to be secretaries of the state. In my home city, the police chief is an African-American who's now running for mayor. The head of the highway patrol for South Carolina is an African-American.
Still exceptions.
In 1975, there was about 15% employment in the African-American community. For the first time in the history of the country, it's under 5%.
40% homelessness.
And 50% of the folks in our community.
Yet 13% of the population.
You had the chance to ask the question. I know that I've watched you on the show that you like people to be deferential and respectful, so I'm going to do the same thing. That is true. So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest the fact of the matter is that progress in America is palpable. It can be measured in generations. I look back at the fact that my grandfather, born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina, when he was on a sidewalk, a white person was coming, he had to step off and not make eye contact. That man believed then, with some doubt now, in the goodness of America, because he believed that having faith in God, faith in himself, and faith in what the future could hold for his kids would unleash opportunities in ways that you cannot imagine.
You know, I'm really glad that Tim Scott went on The View to talk about these issues. I would have really liked it more if Tim Scott would have been honest. But then again, if Tim Scott was being honest about racism and systemic racism in America, he would not be a Republican senator. No, he'd be Tim Scott, that guy that works down at the auto shop. Or Tim Scott, that guy that works security at the mall. Or Tim Scott, that guy with that podcast with the bald head. All right, so systemic racism, man. Tim Scott could not answer the question, nor did he want any parts of that question. So when I see these conservatives online talking as if Tim Scott knocked it out the park, I want to know what park they go to. You mean a ballpark, Frank Park? Or you mean a real park with a ball in it? Because he didn't knock it out of anything because he didn't answer the question, and he avoided it and started deflecting, started talking about his grandma or his grandpa, as if that got anything to do with systemic racism. Hey, if you want to know if there's progress being made in America, if you want to judge it based on do black people have to now still step off into the gutter when a white person's walking their way on the sidewalk, yeah, it looks like we've really progressed. But hold up, though. When you start talking about you can turn the channel and you can see all the successful black people on these stations, you're leaving out a lot of stuff, Tim Scott. Like the fact that black Americans only make up like 2% of directors. I know you hear the names Spike Lee and Ava DuVernay a lot and Jordan Peele, but there's still only like 2% of black people behind the camera. And producers. And we ain't even going to talk about who funds all the movies and who makes the real money in the movie industry. It ain't black people. But yeah, America's never had a problem with hiring black people to entertain them. Woo! Whoopie-doo, Tim Scott. That, my friend, does not mean there isn't systemic racism. We're talking about homelessness rates, poverty rates, unemployment rates. We're talking about health care. We're talking about insurance differentials. We're talking about foreclosure rates. We're talking about discrimination rates. Black American men make up only 2% of male lawyers and doctors. And black American women only make up about 2% of female doctors and female lawyers and female engineers. And if you don't think that's systemic, why such a big gap? See, Tim Scott can't be honest in this conversation because if he is, he'd have to admit that there is racism. And more than just somebody being upset when they see a black person in a commercial. We're talking about the entities that run the country had people in positions and power that discriminated against black people. It is what it is. You can't deny it. It is what it is. Do you know that black students are 3 times more likely to be suspended from school than white kids, even when they do the same shit? Yeah, they both talk back to the teacher, but the white kid's considered rambunctious, curious. He's gonna make a good comedian one day. And the black kid's considered disruptive or scary. Get him out of here. That's America. That's systemic because it happens too often in a row to be an accident. Oh, I hate the part when Tim Scott brings up Barack Obama and Oprah Winfrey or whatever, or some police chief. Dude, Barack Obama being president does not mean there's not systemic racism. The fact that we've only had 11 black senators in a country that's had over 1,100 white ones should tell you something. But that'd be too real to admit it. America's made progress. And if you're a white person, you ain't got money, life's hard. But if you are black, life is harder. The end. There you go, that's it. That's the end of the conversation. But we can't even get conservatives to admit that. So no, I'm not of the mind to say, if you black, you can't achieve. Sure you can achieve. But how high you think you're gonna go? Oh, because one black person became president, another black person became vice president, that means you could become vice president? No, it don't. It means one black person became vice president, another black person became the president. You can do anything and you can do nothing. That's America. But for black people, it's a little harder. The deck stack higher against black people than it is white people. For all the reasons: discrimination, Jim Crow, segregation, lack of wealth, lack of opportunity to build wealth, not getting the GI Bill loan, not getting the New Deal, not getting hired so that you can live, or not being able to buy that home in that nice neighborhood that would have given you the equity in order to start that business. And Tim Scott, please miss me with the unemployment numbers. See, a little thing happens with unemployment numbers. After you've been unemployed for a certain amount of time, you're no longer counted as unemployed. Yeah, America has this way of believing one of 3 things happened. Either you started a super successful business, moved out the country, or you died. And that's where the numbers come from. So never trust unemployment numbers. They're whatever the guy wants them to be, or the woman wants them to be. That's how it works, man. One of Tim Scott's analogies is, he's a candidate that believes that we need to be looking through the windshield, not the rearview mirror. And that's the type of way we need to see America. I understand what you're saying there, Tim. We should be looking forward. But check this out. If you're a black person in America, dealing with all the shit we got to deal with, you better also be checking your gas gauge. And if that gas gauge says black, you may need to have some gas cans in the back, or you ain't gonna make it. That's how America works. That's what it is. And if you're unable to say that, Tim Scott, don't get me wrong, I understand why. You're a coward, but also because that's how America works. Because if you say that too loud, you won't be one of those exceptions anymore. You'll be one of those regular black folks that don't succeed. See, these conservatives love to chop it all up to culture. Yeah, you know, you don't pull your pants up, you don't work hard enough, and you listen to rap music. Though fashion has nothing to do with it, because if you're a white guy, you can wear some cutoff shorts, some flip-flops, comb your hair with some water that you rub into your head real quick, and people wouldn't know if you're the CEO or if you're a starting out employee, because that's culture. And if you listen to rap music, that's not a problem, because more white people listen to rap music than black people. Who do you think's buying this stuff? We can't afford all this music. And when it comes to trying hard, black Americans start more businesses than white folks. We just don't have the money to fund them, because only less than 2% of venture capital money goes to our businesses, our dreams, our ambitions. And if that's not systemic racism, I don't know what is. Hey, you don't want to call it systemic racism? We could call it shit that happens to black people. You know, it is insulting to watch a show like this. On one side, you got Republican Senator Tim Scott, not keeping it real at all, just beating around the bush. And the other side, you got Sunny Hostin, telling the truth. And a lot of Americans swearing up and down that she's not.
Tim Black's Black Table streams Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Feel the power of the news with us.